And what's up, GC Live fan? Friday episode of the show. I am Wes Mitchell, Chris Clark, still on vacation. We're in the auxiliary office today, so no background, but I wanted to hop on, and I could not avoid the show today because we actually have plenty to talk about. Still two public commitments since last show. Plenty going on in Gamecock Nation. The welcome homes continue to roll in, and obviously going to take some of your questions here as we go live as well. So might be a slightly abbreviated show since, again, I'm solo, but definitely wanted to hop in here and chat with y'all and see what's up. Shout out to our presenting sponsor, Clint Hammond. Clint Hammond of the Mortgage Network. That's clinthammond.com. 803-771-6933. Again, 803-771-6933. And let's see, I got to give y'all Clint's in MLS number. It is 71597. His email address is chammond@mortgagenetwork.com. Great time to get out there and refinance your house and save some money. Shout out to everybody. Hope that everybody has a great Independence weekend coming up. Shout out to you as well, Jason. And hey, shout out to Charles Pate here, who has joined us on the show. If y'all have not seen his Gamecock Avengers tribute video on Twitter, go check it out. It is awesome. My sports media life is now complete. It's been made that Chris and I got a cameo in the video. Pretty awesome. I legitimately almost fell out of my chair laughing when I saw my face pop up. So shout out, man. That's awesome. We appreciate you. We appreciate the work there. I want to know, Charles, since we got you on here, how long did that video take to put together? I know it took some effort, took some time, man. So very well done. Appreciate you providing that to Gamecock Nation. Again, I'm Wes. This is GC Live. We're brought to you by Clint Hammond. Go ahead, throw your questions into the chat. And since we have had the last show, South Carolina has now landed two more public commitments, adding Irmo, South Carolina High School, Nick Emmanwori on Thursday night, and adding Texas wide receiver Landon Sampson on Wednesday. We did have a show Wednesday, but his commitment came out publicly after the show. So we're going to, of course, dive into both those guys. And if I can get the video pulled up here, then we're going to dive into Nick Emmanwori's highlight film. This is a kid that South Carolina offered in mid-June. Someone that I think they're aware of prior to camp. They were aware of prior to having him out for camp season, but they wanted to sort of see if he checked all the boxes, and he certainly did that. 6'3", 210 pounds. You'll see him he's listed as 6'4", 195 on his huddle. I think he's probably more along the 6'3" range, but definitely bigger than 195, up to probably 207, 208, maybe 210 pounds. And this is a kid that South Carolina, again, had him in. They wanted to test him. They wanted to sort of see exactly where he was as far as all the measurables go. And as expected, I had several people before this kid came to South Carolina's camp that sort of anticipated that he was going to blow up after going to camp at South Carolina. That happened. They fell in love with him. Productive kid last year. I really think the only question with Nick is just where is he going to end up from a positional standpoint. Listed as a safety, you see him play in safety right here. You see him playing, like a high safety role here, but can play nickel, can grow into a linebacker, has position versatility. And I think that's something that can both help you and hurt you as a prospect, because it's one of those things where people look at you and they like that you're versatile. They like that you can play multiple positions, but then they also wonder where is the best spot ultimately? Where do you fit in? South Carolina taking his commitment sort of as a hybrid linebacker / nickel, a guy sort of that Sam linebacker spot where you're you're playing linebacker, but you're going to have to cover people as well. And, I think that's a good fit. But ultimately, this is a kid that could maybe be a strong safety for you, could grow into more of a true will linebacker type player. And really only time is going to tell what that looks like. Only time will tell exactly where his best spot will be. Not yet ranked by Rivals.com right now. I have sent in his film. I have sent in his measurables. I've sent in basically everything that those guys will need in order for him to get a ranking. It has not come through yet. I would anticipate, in fact, I would almost guarantee that he debuts as a 3-star. It's just a matter of where exactly on that 3-star spectrum he ends up at. But at camp, by the way, a sub 4.5 second 40-yard dash. I was told a 38-inch vertical and a 10.8 broad jump. Those numbers are off the charts. He actually, somebody was asking in here, who does he remind you of? He reminds me a little bit as far as size, athleticism, film, production. And this name may bring back some bad memories for y'all, but Hamza Nasruddin. Y'all remember him? Kid that was committed to South Carolina at one point. If you're recruiting it on here, you definitely will remember him. Was committed to South Carolina, ended up decommitting, ended up going to Florida State, and actually had a really nice career there. But you look at the length, you look at the size, and people said that about Hamza. He was a big safety. Where does he fit in? Is he a true safety or is he a linebacker? And with Hamza, this was a guy that people were having that very same conversation. But if you go back and look at Hamza's stuff from back then, if you look at his recruiting profile from back then, very, very similar to what you see right now with Nick. Hamza and his Florida State profile is actually, Florida State does not list height and weight. That's weird. But I did talk to Aaron Brand, who is the Irmo head coach. He compared him to Jamin Davis, who is the Kentucky linebacker that was that was drafted by the Washington football team this past year, and a guy that was really, really good his final year. Let's see. Any questions from y'all? Like I said, I'll make this a very Q&A heavy show if y'all want. Somebody said Devontae Holloman. That's not a bad comparison. That's really not. Devontae was a big kid in South Carolina. South Carolina really, I felt like, wanted to transition him to Spur early in his career. But ultimately, he played a ton of safety at South Carolina before Devontae got hurt. He was playing linebacker in the league. So he did ultimately slide down to a spot where he's playing a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage and playing inside the box. But, I saw Nick play at a 7-on-7 yesterday. This is a kid that can play coverage, can come up and hit you. They actually use him at wide receiver in 7-on-7 quite a bit, and he'll go out there and make some plays there just because he's a big kid who obviously can run. So versatile kid. The coaches at Irmo love him and is someone that obviously South Carolina is excited to have, and a guy that I think they should be excited about. There's NFL level athleticism here. We'll see. I think when you talk about potential, that's a dangerous word, but at the same time, all the potential is here. And he's a driven kid. He's a hard worker. He's a leader. He has what you're looking for. If you're South Carolina trying to rebuild this secondary, or as I said, even the linebacking core with him. So if y'all have questions about him, throw them in there. Somebody has asked when we can expect for a new commitment to be revealed as far as the welcome homes go. I don't think you're going to have to wait too long. I don't want to give anything away on all that, but I would imagine you might get some good news potentially as early as this weekend on that. So we shall see, and certainly if there are, if there is an opportunity for South Carolina to land some commitments this weekend, we will talk about that on Monday's show when Chris Clark returns to action after taking a little bit of time off. The other commitment was, of course, Landon Sampson. And this is a kid, again, that I think South Carolina is very excited to have. And probably, in my opinion, one of their more underrated guys at this point. Here, I'm going to pull up the highlights for you guys to see. But Sampson is from Southlake Carroll High School in Southlake, Texas, one of the best programs in Texas, and really one of the highest levels of football that you can play in Texas. Hey, shout out Greg throwing a little beer money. Let's see. Wow, Greg, I appreciate that, man. You didn't even ask a question. If you throw some money at me, you need to ask some question. But I do appreciate it, man. There are 2 silent commits left at this point. For those of you who have not been keeping track at home, there are 2. All right, let's dive into the film. Let me get this pulled up for y'all. Again, I'm solo today, so it's a little bit disjointed. But we'll make it work, right? All right, this is Landon Sampson. As you see there, 74 catches last year, almost 1,300 yards, 15 touchdowns. And, a kid that South Carolina is extremely excited to have. And I think they believe they got a steal from a production standpoint. Did it at the highest level. He ran a 4.40 40-yard dash. I'm sure that's hand-timed, but still very, very impressive. And he actually has a 40-plus inch vertical. I know you may be sitting at home saying you maybe don't believe that, but his dad sent me a picture of him leaping with his head above the goalpost, above the crossbar on the goalpost. So, Landon Sampson, a tremendous athlete in his own right. Here you see able to separate, able to get open, and I think a guy that actually can help South Carolina right away. High football IQ, has athleticism, has speed, hard worker, really checks all the boxes. And I think South Carolina being able to get him this early without visiting is a massive get for them. And really, y'all, I think what this does, going ahead and adding Landon Sampson, adding Emmanwori, and starting to get yourself in a position, if you're South Carolina, to have the class pretty much not complete, but have a large portion of the class already sewed up. It allows you to be a little bit more selective moving forward with prospects. So down the stretch, you're going to be chasing your Antonio Williams, your Oscar Delps, your a final couple of big time defensive backs. They'll of course try to complete the linebacker class. Jamari Lyons at defensive tackle. So I think as far as being a class right now, if you look at the numbers, they've got 13 public commitments, 2 silent commitments. So you're at 15 commits total. I think this is a situation where you get a little bit more selective. You start telling prospects, hey, there's only so many spots left, and you kind of use that to your advantage. And I think that's what this run does for South Carolina in a big picture standpoint. Hey, we got another tip here. Greg S., what do you think has been the biggest factor in finally tapping the Texas talent pool? Try to say that 3 times fast. You know what, Greg? It's not the pretty answer, but I think this was a little bit of a coincidence that South Carolina has 2 guys from Texas in this same class. Now, the answer really goes back to relationships. If you look at Landon Sampson, Justin Stepp, obviously was at Arkansas before he got to South Carolina, but was at SMU before he got to Arkansas. So you're coaching in Texas. You're building relationships in Texas. And then if you're at Arkansas, you are in a position where you're still recruiting the state of Texas because you're pretty close. You're one of the closer SEC schools to that state, obviously other than Texas A&M, which is in it. And so Stepp had this long-standing relationship with his coach. That sort of got South Carolina involved. That put South Carolina in a position to go out and create a relationship there with Landon Sampson, and then you're able to go out there and land him. So I think the relationship there not only helped Stepp get in good with Sampson, but it helped for Stepp to have a good idea of what type of player this is, to get a good evaluation here of what type of person and player Sampson is. So that was the connection there. Then in the case of Peyton Williams, it was another relationship there. Defensive assistant Joe Bowen, he's got a prior relationship to Peyton Williams' head coach because they were both at Florida State at the same time. So that relationship got South Carolina involved. Peyton Williams and his entire family takes an unofficial visit from Texas to South Carolina. It goes very, very well. And in that case, those relationships just got you in the door. So those relationships could have been anywhere. They just happened to be in the state of Texas. But that's sort of how it played out. But the cool thing here is that for South Carolina, maybe you build a little bit of an inroad there. We've seen it with Delaware. That's not anything you would have expected. But South Carolina getting Marshawn Lloyd started the process of South Carolina getting more players from Delaware. And, then you get Debo Williams, you get Braden Davis. And sometimes these little pipelines sort of come up out of nowhere. One guy can sort of set it off. So now South Carolina gets a couple of guys out of Texas. We'll see. Does that pay off down the road? Is that something that continues? Or is it just sort of a coincidence and a flash in the pan and something that doesn't necessarily play out, but you still maybe get two good players there? We'll see just how deep that goes. Question from Reed wants to know thoughts on Nick James choosing to wait. I know a lot of people had assumed that Nick James was one of the silent commits, but that is not the case. There's still two silent commits out there. I don't know necessarily that it is a bad thing that he's waiting. I don't know necessarily if it's a good thing either. I think it's probably pretty neutral in the grand scheme. But I know there had sort of been this theory, this assumption that Nick James was definitely going to choose South Carolina if he committed this weekend. I was never told that. I was never told that was the case. I think people were still waiting. We're still in the dark on seeing what he was going to do. And, that obviously remains the case. But we'll see. South Carolina is in it. They'll remain in it. And we'll sort of see. That's a position they are in with several defensive linemen that they like and that like them. So I don't know. I don't know how that one's going to play out, y'all. But we'll see. Probably a neutral. If I had to sort of go neutral or negative or positive, I would say neutral on Nick James with a slight lean maybe towards positive. Rob wants to know if there are any more info on Oscar Delp. No, not really. I mean, at this point, it's a waiting game, right? I think it's a positive for South Carolina that Delp came out and told Phil Kornblut that he's going to be at the cookout at South Carolina on July 31st. I think that's a huge positive for South Carolina. Now, does he visit Clemson? He said he's going to visit Clemson as well. Does he try to sneak off to Georgia again as well? Does that sort of get mixed in there too? Not sneak off, you know what I mean? Does he fit in a visit to Georgia is what I'm trying to say. Who knows? Does this thing go to September or is it over in July? He hinted to us after his official that that it could be in July, that if he feels comfortable, that if he's ready to go, then he may sort of be ready to commit. So we'll see if he commits in July. My read is that it probably works. I think that's a pretty good sign for South Carolina. But again, nobody knows. I don't know if Oscar Delp knows where he's going. Right now, he is in the middle of a hashtag war on Twitter, which is crazy. So I don't know. There's just a lot going on right there. You're in the middle of two fan bases sort of tugging at you there, which I imagine is kind of cool, but also maybe I don't know. It's different. And let's see who else asked something. Cartwright, is the last? Yes, that is the last day that recruiting is open. So recruiting is closed right now as far as in person, but it will be back open the final week of July, and then it's a dead period again. So yes, if South Carolina gets them in July 31st, then you will be looking potentially at South Carolina having gotten the final official and gotten the final unofficial going into now he could still take visits in July, or excuse me, in the fall, I should say, for games. That would still be a possibility. Question from Greg, who threw together a tip earlier. Can you talk about the insanity of almost completing 2 classes, one that's ranked, coaching staff, etc., in 7 months? It's been impressive how it's come together. Haven't played a game, but it's still impressive. Yeah, you know what? I think the most impressive thing that Shane Beamer has done to this moment is Shane Beamer has managed to do the impossible, and that is to get Gamecock Twitter all pulling in one direction. Like, if you would have told me 7 months ago that would happen, I would not have believed you. Now, he still has 3-star Tommy as his one remaining detractor on Facebook. But Gamecock Twitter has gotten on board 100% with Shane Beamer and has gone from being, let's be honest, y'all, some of the negativity on Twitter is not helpful for the South Carolina football program. And I know that everybody has a right to voice their opinion. That's completely fine. But it hasn't been helpful by any means. There's a point where it was the opposite of helpful. But now the whole unit of Gamecock Twitter has sort of been pulling in one direction. I think that they, or you, if you're watching the show, I think you have helped pull this thing, in a positive way for South Carolina football. And I think prospects are taking notice of that. And prospects don't choose schools because of Twitter, but it can help. It actually can help. It kind of reminds me of the way, I think I think that North Carolina a couple of years ago was able to start building some momentum on social media, and prospects. And the reason I think it helps is also because prospects more than ever take notice of where other prospects are going. So if you build some momentum, and this isn't just a social media thing, but if you can build some momentum in recruiting, and the way they've been able to sort of, I would say, run all these commitments together, people take notice. So then other prospects look and try to not emulate it, but it makes other prospects take notice of South Carolina. We saw that with UNC. We saw that with before things fell apart. Remember last year, about this time, Tennessee had a top 10, top 5 recruiting class. A lot of that was building some momentum by the way their class was coming together, and that they were getting a run of commitments all in a row. So yeah. Jason wants to know any CJ Smith news. CJ committed to Florida. Jason. Travis said, are you confirming that Gamecock social media has impact on recruiting? I think it can. I'm not saying that's ever the reason a kid picks a school, but in the list of things, put it like this, if you're a fan of a school, you would rather that be a positive. You'd rather your social media presence be in the pro column as opposed to the con column. Charles says, what are the chances Shane Beamer is in the middle of a phone call right now? Much greater than 50-50. Greg asks, are there any under-the-radar in-state guys who are getting a good look? Any we haven't really heard about? Not that you haven't really heard about. The kid, Jaden McGowan, the wide receiver from Lawrence, speedster. He's maybe, if you've read Gamecock Central, you've heard about him, but he's one to sort of keep an eye on, or that they'll continue to evaluate. That's well under the radar, but super fast kid, y'all. I mean, super speedy. James wants to know, how do I feel about the offensive tackle class? I think Ryan Brubaker was the cherry on top, man. That's a great high school O-line class. Let's see. James, is Glover still a possibility? Absolutely. Very hard to get a read on where Jalen Glover is going, but I think that South Carolina's in it. I think South Carolina feels like they're in it. I dare say they're quietly confident about their current position. Florida State is a factor. They've always been a factor. Florida's maybe a factor. He had a great official to Georgia Tech. I'd be surprised if he chooses Georgia Tech over those schools, but he really liked Georgia Tech. So he really liked South Carolina. So that one continues to be a marathon with Jalen Glover. Jeremy wants to know, how many running backs is South Carolina taking? My guess is at the end of the day, one, Jeremy. You can make a case for two, depending if South Carolina, for whatever reason, let's say if South Carolina, if Kevin Harris had a huge year and went pro, then you could make a case for taking two running backs. But I would guess you end up taking one. Remaining needs for the class, couple of receivers. I think O-line's in good shape. One tight end, obviously, need being Oscar Delp. A couple of linebackers, a couple of DBs, an edge guy or two, and an interior guy or two. Probably off the top of my head is how I would list the needs. Let's see. Sorry, I'm losing my place here, y'all. Cartwright wants to know, are there any injuries? I think most, if not all, of the guys who were injured in the spring, Cartwright, are back healthy. I don't know if there's anyone that has a new injury or anything like that. I haven't heard anything about that, but like Marshawn Lloyd, I think he's 100%, which is obviously a good sign for South Carolina. Cameron McKinney, what are the odds of landing Antonio Williams? I think pretty good, but Ole Miss actually is a huge threat there. Clemson would be a threat if they offer, but they have not offered yet. That's sort of been the default answer there at this point, has been it's South Carolina or Ole Miss or Clemson if they offer. So far, no Clemson offer. I still think South Carolina will edge out Ole Miss there in the end, but do not downplay Ole Miss. They are still a big factor there. Reed wants to know, how much of a threat is Clemson to land Delp? I don't think a huge threat. Clemson's always a threat, if that makes sense, but in this particular instance, I think it is a true South Carolina versus Georgia battle. Let's see. Cartwright wants to know, we're going to go after the interior D-line transfer from Tennessee. I have not seen anything about that yet. I don't know which guy you're talking about. I haven't heard that that's the guy South Carolina's after. But also, I can't completely rule it out. Vince, any PWOs? Absolutely. They're always looking for PWOs. I think they'll bring in another big class of preferred walk-ons and probably will, I think, every class. Peyton Strickland has a PWO offer at tight end. All right, final couple of questions, y'all. Patrick wants to know about the coaching staff and the players gelling, and when do players report and fall practice start? Yeah, so players are on campus right now for summer workouts, but no exact schedule for fall camp. That generally will start the first week of August. I would imagine, let's see, that Monday is August 2nd. That Tuesday is August 3rd. I'd imagine fall camp probably starts August 2nd or 3rd, potentially. And, the players have really come together. I think that is safe to say. They've actually, the thing I've noticed is that the players have done a really good job of helping recruit the kids and sort of buying into the recruiting side of everything for South Carolina. Taylor wants to, I'm not sure Taylor, I need to know which Sumter kids you're talking about. There's a couple of different Sumter ones. No connections there that I'm aware of, Greg. All right, y'all. I think we're going to cut it short today. I've got some content I've got to catch up on. Like I said, I didn't want to just not do a show. Chris will be back on Monday from vacation. So I'm assuming we're going to hop on, even though that's it's a day after a holiday. But yeah, we should be on here. I think we'll be on here, and we'll continue to go into what's going on with South Carolina recruiting. If they land any commits this weekend, we'll be talking about that on Monday. But we'll definitely be plenty to talk about next week. I appreciate y'all hopping on. Hope this was somewhat informative. If not, I apologize. But we'll be back again. Appreciate Clinton Hammond, ClintonHammond.com of the Mortgage Network, 803-771-6933. Everybody have a great holiday weekend. Happy 4th of July. As Yuva would say, mix some waters in. Don't drink too much. And we'll see you all on Monday. Appreciate it.